esta pena ya dejemos ya.
More than an hour, the jury in convicted killer Robert Martinez's murder trial had their punishment verdict. 99 years in prison.
Martinez killed a man in what prosecutors called an execution-style murder. Paul Venema following this story from the Justice Center.
Nobody deserves to die. Nobody deserves to be executed the way that he executed Steven Serna.
Serna was shot to death in a drainage ditch known as Hell's Gate 3 years ago. He was lured there by 22-year-old Robert Martinez, who promised him he would make him some drug money.
This was not an accidental or a reckless shooting. It was an execution.
An execution, she said, in retaliation for the murder of one of Martinez's friends. Martinez claimed that a member of Serna's family was involved in that murder. The state's key witness was Martinez's uncle, Larry Isaac. He testified that his nephew admitted to him that he killed Serna.
This was not a retaliatory strike. There's no evidence of that. Not one drop of evidence other than from Larry Isaac, who himself does not know.
Isaac testified for the state in exchange for a reduction in prison time in a kidnapping case pending against him. McRae suggested that because of that deal, Isaac's testimony was not credible. It was, prosecutors countered, as they asked for a life sentence. 99 years is considered the equivalent to life in prison. Martinez will have to do 30 years in prison before he's even eligible for parole. Paul Venema, KSAT 12 News.
And San Antonio, that's part of what we need to come to the realization. We're having these people not look at our community safety and our community's welfare. You know, I came back from Austin, they had this opioid hearing, and it's not opioids. You guys have watched these young Mexican kids kill each other throughout our city's history. I mean, this has been going on rampantly, and it's not just here, it's throughout the United States. Part of what President Donald Trump has declared a public health state of emergency. Now, I think I showed you in the last show, but this is the misgivings we're having to do with our judicial and how deep of a state of corruption that we're in. They actually, let me let you watch this.
The man who prosecutors say held the key to solving a cold case murder testified today in the trial of the accused killer. His testimony included a chilling account of what's been called the Hell's Gate murder. Paul Venema now with who that witness is and how the prosecution got him to talk.
22-year-old Robert Martinez can only listen as his uncle, 31-year-old Larry Isaac, tells of a phone conversation the two had. It was just days after the body of 21-year-old Steven Serna was found in this drainage ditch known as Hell's Gate. Isaac asked Martinez to put Serna on the phone.
He couldn't come to the phone. I was like, why? He's like, because he came, he's in the dirt or something like that.
He said what?
He's in the dirt.
He said that he initially suspected another man had killed Serna. Martinez's admission, he said, caught him by surprise.
I just didn't want to hear that he did it. I pretty much was trying to get the answer that Chasm did it. But he denied it and said he did it.
As for a motive, Isaac repeated what prosecutors have said all along, that it was a retaliation hit.
I guess one of the victim's cousin had killed his best friend.
Isaac said Martinez told how he lured Serna into the ditch with a promise to make some drug money.
They walked through the ditch. There's houses right there. And that's when he takes his aim shot and fires at him. And he slumps over and then he does one shot at him.
Isaac testified as part of a plea bargain. He's jailed awaiting trial on kidnapping charges. For his testimony, Isaac's prison time will be cut short. He was facing a maximum of 20 years. Now he's facing 9. Paul Venema, KSAT 12 News.
That kid is going to end up going to prison for 9 years. I think they made a deal with him for 9 years. Do you know what's going to happen to that kid because of what the prosecutors made him do? You know how they put his life in danger by what they've done here. And I'm thinking, like, how the hell is this due process? You know, that's how my son became a prisoner, because of the corruptness of this system. But this is the processes that are causing even what's happening there on the suicides we're having in the county jail. And what we tried to bring to you guys a couple years ago is back Susan Parmelo, I think we had 5 suicides. One of them was a veteran. One was a young kid that killed himself. Or was he killed? Because through our investigation, we're finding out that there was family was saying that it wasn't suicide. Let me let you watch this.
Also new on the night beat, 3 suicides in almost 3 weeks. The most recent death at the Bexar County Jail, 18-year-old Jesus Lopez. The sheriff's office says Lopez, a capital murder suspect, committed suicide in his cell. But as the night team's Bill Barajas explains, his family says that was unlike him and believes the sheriff's office has some explaining to do.
Jesus Lopez was found inside his cell Thursday morning. He was rushed to the hospital but died. His family now questioning claims that he took his own life.
He never cried in a visit. He never like, oh, I can't do this anymore, you know, be sad or nothing. He was strong.
Lopez was arrested in April and charged with capital murder for his alleged role in the death of 2 people at a Northside apartment. His uncle Larry Lasoya believes his death isn't being taken seriously because of his nephew's charges.
Isn't it innocent to proven guilty? Because that's the law, right? You're innocent to proven guilty. So what makes it, okay, no matter what crime you do, no matter what crime, it doesn't make it right for the jail guards to have let something happen like that, period.
State jail inspectors made an unannounced visit to the Bexar County Jail earlier this week following the death of 2 other inmates. Lopez alleged suicide, now the 3rd one in about 3 weeks.
Because the guy was there for 30 minutes hanging, and that was said by the doctors. It wasn't by us, inmates, or anybody else, by the doctors. So that gives me a concern.
Lasoya tells us inmates are supposed to be checked on every 15 minutes, but the sheriff's office says he is mistaken. Inmates are only required to be checked on every hour. The sheriff's office has also said its jail is a national model in its efforts to screen inmates for mental illness and suicidal tendencies.
How can you say that? Somebody's life just got killed in there. If you were doing your job.
Lopez's death is under investigation. Lasoya says no matter the outcome, his family will fight for other inmates to make sure this doesn't happen again. Bill Barajas, KSAT 12 News.
It wasn't suicide. This kid didn't kill himself. But to know this is what's happening, this is the administrating of why we have ombudsmen appointed looking at why we have these first responders that have a mental health crisis themselves that are working these jails and working these prisons. I mean, we're getting reports incoming that guards are letting inmates kill each other in Texas prisons today. This is happening to where, you know, we see even here in the county jail, they're sending out text messages and pictures of them in the jail. So this is the monitoring of what we're having to deal with. And I think I told you on the last show, we had these guards, you know, taking in drugs. And I think what's going to be the most important part of what we're trying to do and what we did there when they had this opioid task force that this commission that had met there in Austin on these last 6 meetings, and what we try to bring in the tools to divert this the dehumanization of human beings. You know, I mean, this is, you know, it's bad enough they're still not saying what the judge ruled on the work we did for 12,000 children. But when you have these so-called leaders steering away from the matters of fact on what's happening in this jail, you know, let me listen to what this young man, this James Keith, he works for the Bexar County Sheriff's.
State jail inspectors making an unannounced visit to the Bexar County Jail this week following the suicides of 2 inmates in the past 2 weeks.
Both inmates appear to have hanged themselves in their cells. The sheriff's office tells the night team's Tim Gerber it welcomes the review. As the state conducts its investigation, the defenders take a look at how the jail performed on state inspections over the past 8 years. It's tonight's defenders investigation.
Anytime somebody loses their life in one of our facilities, we have failed, and we have a responsibility to make it right.
James Keith confident inspectors from the Texas Commission on Jail Standards will not find any major problems as it reviews the recent suicides of 2 inmates.
Verbally, they told us that they didn't see any issues, but they were going to provide a report with a summary that would detail anything that they did find.
The first suicide happened on June 28th, the second on July 9th. The deaths were the first suicides to occur at the jail this year. Keith says while the county jail has become a national model for its efforts to screen incoming inmates for mental illness and suicidal tendencies, they still have room for improvement.
And you can't always stop this. You want to, but it's not always possible.
The defenders recently requested all of the state inspections performed at the jail since 2008. The reports track the number of deaths, suicides, escapes, and fires that occur in all Texas jails, as well as any deficiencies found. From 2012 to 2015, under Sheriff Susan Pomerleau, there were no deficiencies found. There were 20 deaths, 10 suicides, 4 escapes, and 16 fires recorded in that time period. Under the watch of former Sheriffs Amadeo Ortiz and Rolanda Tafoya between 2008 and 2012, inspectors logged 21 areas of noncompliance that were later corrected. There were 25 deaths, 11 suicides, 2 escapes, and 22 fires. Keith says the report showed the sheriff has made improvements at the jail, but still strives to be better.
If we could be considered a national model and still have incidents where an inmate is able to commit suicide, it shows you that there's still a lot of work that has to be done in the corrections industry. We're committed to finding those flaws, fixing them, and learning from those mistakes.
Now, as the state conducts its review of these suicides, the county is doing its own simultaneous investigations of the suicides. And so far, James Keith told me today that they have found nothing that suggests any wrongdoing on any of the parts of any of the employees here at the Bexar County Jail. Even so, they're waiting for that report. And when it is issued, we'll certainly let you know what the state says. For now, reporting live outside the Bexar County Jail tonight, Tim Gerber, KSAT 12 News.
You know, and him to even have that type of authority and not looking at the matters of fact, you don't need a CIT training. You're using psychotropic drugs in your jail. And you're going to have to get suicide prevention because, you know, here a couple weeks ago, they had some immigrant children were put on the same psychotropic drugs. And, you know, this is causing permanent damage. And this is where I can't get these people to not realize or say the truth. Because someone's contracting, this is somebody's business to use these psychotropic drugs. This isn't an opioid problem. We've already did that when we were with our Veterans Coalition. Veterans for Education Reform did attest to, as far as the 2012 suicide report, and 22 veterans killing themselves every day, being one of the factors there of not these men just being Christian men and having to kill children in this war, looking for weapons of mass destruction and praying to God that forgives them for killing these children. And, you know, you work with the guys in Rumsfeld and try to get them back home. You tell them, you know, you were doing your duty. But when they get home, similar to what I had to speak on as far as this Airman Kelly at the Sutherland Springs shooter, 2012, put in a mental ward on psychotropics. Tried to escape, tried to get back to Texas. They caught him in El Paso, took him back, solitary psychotropics. He got found guilty on November 7th. He went into the church on November 5th. And we went to attend a memorial there in Floresville, Texas with Vice President Pence. And that day, I think I brought it to you on one of our shows that he had said, you know, it's that this evil must leave our land. And, you know, that's what we had said after the attorneys had talked to us and deposed us on it being psychotropics. Back in 2012, the wives don't realize when they ask a veteran for a divorce that he can't go against God's will because he's a Christian. When you get married, he gets married until death do you part. And so, you know, he believes killing his wife, killing his children, killing himself is doing God's will. Because, you know, and even a good friend of mine, he killed his 2 sons. And he was a law professor. And he says, you can't reverse this. You know, it's too late. And what they've done with these drugs to control American children. And now what we're having to face, because we can't get a resource, and that's why I did the reviews on the opioid suicide crisis that they're referencing to. And there was one young man, Mr. White, a representative, and a couple other people did try to raise the flag, but there was a group there, Foster America, out of Washington. This girl used to be a foster child. Is actually a spokesman for what she didn't say as to what the judge said, but she did reference to the MD versus Perry case. And that being where the judge said these members are not functional for our society. Not functional for our society is part of what I need you to realize. Let me let you watch this.
Officers under attack across the country.
Yeah, one of them, a veteran officer in San Antonio, murdered execution style.
Let's get right to Kelly Wright live with new information on this. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Heather. A tragic and disturbing day for police in San Antonio. A massive manhunt is now underway for a suspect who shot and killed 50-year-old Detective Benjamin Marconi. Marconi was sitting in his cruiser, writing a ticket, when a gunman drove up behind him in a black sedan, then walking over to his window and shooting him twice in the head. The deliberate and violent daytime ambush sending shockwaves through the city.
This type of senseless violence is unacceptable.
Most families will be celebrating the holidays. SAPD will be burying one of its own because of an ultimate act of cowardice by a suspect who will be caught and brought to justice.
San Antonio police say they're questioning a person of interest who has not been identified as a suspect. Police now asking for help identifying the man you're looking at in this picture, believing he may have information. And then in St. Louis, a veteran police sergeant targeted while sitting in traffic, a car pulling alongside his marked patrol cruiser, shooting the sergeant twice in the face. Severely wounded, he still managed to call for help. And hours later, the suspected gunman was tracked down and killed in a shootout with other officers.
This officer was not involved in a traffic stop. This officer was not trying to pull this car over. This officer was driving down the road and was ambushed.
The St. Louis sergeant, I should say, is in critical condition but is expected to survive. Two other officers also shot overnight, one in Sanibel, Florida, and the other in Gladstone, Missouri, just outside of Kansas City. Well, they were both shot during traffic stops as well, and they're expected to survive also. Clayton.
All right, thanks, Kelly.
You know, Officer Marconi, and there was also Officer Medrano there when I was at the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center to speak to them as far as supporting my initiative on the ESP project. All of a sudden there was a shooting. I was there at the college, so I started running down there, and I think I brought it to you a couple of months ago. And you know, the kid was laying there dead, and the officer, one was dead, and Medrano. Or even the kid here with Marconi in front of our police station. And I was at the Market Square, and I see the police station surrounded. And the kid was just, I'm thinking, we're still investigating this, but he just got out of prison, and he was supposed to get his child. They were supposed to bring his baby there, but he was concerned with the baby not showing up, so he went to ask the police to call his ex-wife or ex-girlfriend, but they said they couldn't do nothing, they had to take it to court. And that, I guess it's like a crime of passion, you know what I mean? You're so concerned about your child, and you're trying to do the right thing. You know, and even like my son, you know, he tried to do the right thing. He didn't remember because of what the damages did on his Prozac. But, you know, he still believed what they were telling him when they lied to him. They said they were going to recommend deferred. But because of the damage as to what I asked the judge to look back at and putting him on this Prozac, almost killing my son. You know, this is how deep this corruption is in our county. When you have these people that address why we're leading the nation in recidivism out of our juvenile system, and then we have a mental health crisis in the jail to where we have 400 insane inmates. It's going to cost us $300 million that these men are coming out not functional. But these are children that have endured this process that shows San Antonio to be the most violent city in America. I don't know how we managed to become this way, but this isn't due process for humanity. So I'm gonna need your help. I need you to call that mayor and ask him, is this the city we deserve? Are we gonna continue inciting violence by doing this to poor indigent children? And these are American children. So please hear my cry and join me in prayer.
There comes a time when we heed a certain call, when the world must come together as one. There are people dying. Oh, when it's time to lend a hand to life, the greatest gift of all. We could go on pretending day by day that someone somewhere will soon make a change. We all a part of God's great big family. And the truth, you know, love is all we need. We are the world. We are the children. We are the ones who make a brighter day. So let's start giving. There's a choice we're making. We're saving our own lives. It's true, we make a better day. Just you and me. Well, send them your heart so they know that someone cares, and their lives will be stronger and free. As God has shown us by turning stone to bread, and so we all must lend a hand.